The moon hung high over the sands of ancient Egypt, its silvery light casting an otherworldly glow on the Temple of Hathor in Dendera. Within the temple's sacred walls, Nefertari, a young priestess, prepared herself for a journey that few would ever understand. She had been chosen as one of the Dreamwalkers, an elite group of priestesses trained to enter alternate realities through lucid dreaming, a practice handed down from the gods themselves. Nefertari knelt before the statue of Hathor, her head bowed as she recited an incantation in a low, rhythmic tone. The air around her seemed to thrum with energy as the temple's walls, inscribed with intricate hieroglyphs, appeared to shimmer in the flickering torchlight. Beside her, the high priestess Anuket stood watch, her gaze steady and knowing. "Are you ready, child?" Anuket asked, her voice a soft murmur. Nefertari nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. "I am ready, High Priestess." Anuket placed a hand on Nefertari's shoulder, the gesture both grounding and empowering. "Remember, the realm of dreams is vast and unpredictable. Seek the knowledge we need, but guard your spirit. The balance between worlds is fragile." With those words, Nefertari reclined on the ceremonial cot, her body wrapped in fine linen. The other priestesses began to chant, their voices harmonizing in a melody that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. A bowl of blue lotus oil burned nearby, its heady fragrance filling the chamber and pulling Nefertari into a deep trance-like state. As her breathing slowed, Nefertari's mind began to drift. Colors swirled before her closed eyes, forming patterns that coalesced into a shimmering portal. She felt herself being pulled forward, her physical body left behind as her spirit crossed the threshold into the dream realm. The world on the other side was both familiar and alien. Nefertari stood in a landscape of golden sands under a sky of shifting hues, violet, azure, and deep indigo. Here, the pyramids of Giza stood taller and more pristine than in her waking world, their smooth surfaces gleaming with an inner light. The air crackled with energy, and distant voices whispered secrets just beyond comprehension. "Welcome, Dreamwalker," came a voice from behind her. Turning, Nefertari saw a figure clad in flowing robes adorned with stars. His face was obscured by a golden mask shaped like the head of a falcon. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady despite the strangeness of the encounter. "I am Sahu," the figure replied, "guardian of the astral veil. You seek knowledge, do you not?" "I do," Nefertari said, inclining her head respectfully. "My people are plagued by drought, and the Nile grows weaker each year. The pharaoh believes the gods are displeased. I must find a way to restore their favor." Sahu extended a hand, and the sands beneath them began to ripple, forming an intricate map of the cosmos. "The answers you seek lie within the Ake," he said, pointing to a radiant symbol at the map's center. "But to reach it, you must pass 3 trials. The trial of memory, the trial of harmony, and the trial of truth." Nefertari squared her shoulders. "I am ready." The trial of memory began in a chamber filled with floating hieroglyphs that glowed softly in the dim light. Each symbol represented a moment in history, a fragment of collective human memory. Nefertari's task was to reconstruct the sequence of events that had led to the Nile's weakening. As she moved through the chamber, the symbols shifted and reformed, testing her knowledge and intuition. She saw visions of the past, pharaohs making offerings to the gods, farmers tending to the fertile land, and the Nile flowing strong and full of life. But interspersed with these images were darker ones: greed, neglect, and the desecration of sacred sites. Finally, Nefertari pieced together the truth. "It is not the gods who are displeased," she murmured. "It is we who have abandoned our responsibilities to the land and to each other." The hieroglyphs glowed brighter, and the chamber dissolved into light, signaling her success. The trial of harmony brought her to a lush garden filled with plants and animals, all radiating vibrant energy. In the center stood a grand sycamore tree, its branches heavy with golden fruit. Nefertari understood that the balance of this realm depended on her actions. Suddenly, a jackal and a serpent appeared before her, locked in a deadly struggle. Their conflict disrupted the harmony of the garden, causing the plants to wither and the sky to darken. Nefertari hesitated, knowing that intervening might have unintended consequences. Closing her eyes, she reached deep within herself for guidance. When she opened them, she extended her hands toward the combatants, speaking words of peace. Slowly, the jackal and the serpent ceased their fighting, each retreating to its rightful place. The garden's vitality returned, and the sycamore tree glowed with renewed life. The final trial, the trial of truth, brought her to a mirrored chamber where her own reflection confronted her. The reflection spoke, its voice a perfect echo of her own. "You have seen the causes of your people's suffering and restored harmony to the dream realm," it said. "But are you prepared to face the truth of your own heart?" Nefertari hesitated. "What truth do you mean?" Her reflection stepped forward, becoming more real with each passing moment. "You carry doubt and fear, priestess. You question whether you are worthy of this burden, whether you can truly save your people. To succeed, you must confront these doubts and embrace your purpose fully." Nefertari felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. The reflection's words rang true. She had always feared failure, feared that she might not be enough. But standing here, in the heart of the dream realm, she understood that courage was not the absence of fear but the willingness to act despite it. "I am afraid," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I will not let that stop me. My people need me, and I will do whatever it takes to help them." The reflection smiled, its form dissolving into a cascade of golden light that filled the chamber. The portal to the arche appeared before her, its radiance beckoning. Nefertari stepped through the portal and found herself standing before the gods themselves. Hathor, Osiris, and Thoth sat in a semicircle, their forms shimmering with divine power. Each deity regarded her with a mix of curiosity and approval. "You have passed the trials, Dreamwalker," Hathor said, her voice resonating like a melody. "What do you seek?" "I seek guidance to restore the Nile and save my people," Nefertari replied, bowing deeply. Thoth, the god of wisdom, stepped forward. "The Nile's flow is a reflection of balance, not just in nature but in the hearts of men. Return to your world and teach them what you have learned. Only through unity and respect for the sacred can the Nile be restored." Osiris extended a hand, a single golden lotus blooming in his palm. "Take this as a symbol of your journey and a reminder of the truths you have uncovered. Plant it by the Nile, and its roots will carry your message to the hearts of your people." With the lotus in hand, Nefertari felt herself being pulled back to the waking world. The gods' voices echoed in her mind, urging her onward. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the temple, surrounded by the priestesses. Anuket knelt beside her, her expression filled with both relief and pride. "You have returned," the high priestess said. "What did you learn?" Nefertari sat up, clutching the golden lotus tightly. "The Nile's strength lies not just in the favor of the gods but in the harmony of our actions. We must honor the land, the river, and each other if we are to thrive." Anuket nodded. "Then let us begin." The priestesses gathered around her, their chants rising once more as Nefertari prepared to share her vision. The golden lotus gleamed in the torchlight, a beacon of hope for a people on the brink of renewal. As the golden lotus rested in Nefertari's hands, it seemed to pulse faintly, almost alive with the wisdom of the gods. Anuket motioned for the other priestesses to join her in a circle around Nefertari. Their gazes were intent, filled with the silent hope that the journey had yielded the answers they desperately needed. "Tell us what must be done," Anuket urged. Nefertari stood, her movements slow and deliberate as though the weight of her vision pressed heavily on her shoulders. "The Nile is not merely a river. It is a lifeline, a spirit that reflects the harmony, or discord, of the people who depend on it. The gods have entrusted us with a task, to heal the rift within our hearts and restore the sacred balance we have abandoned." The priestesses exchanged glances, some nodding, others uncertain. One of the younger priestesses, Merit, stepped forward hesitantly. "But how can we, mere mortals, hope to mend what has been broken for so long?" Nefertari's gaze softened. "By beginning with small acts that ripple outward, like a stone cast into the river. The gods have given us this," she said, holding up the golden lotus. "Its roots will carry the essence of unity to the Nile. But it will require more than that. We must inspire the people to act with reverence and responsibility." Anuket nodded, her expression resolute. "Then we must call for the pharaoh. He must hear this truth, for his leadership will be key to guiding the people." Days later, under the blazing sun, Nefertari stood on the banks of the Nile alongside Anuket and a delegation of priestesses. The golden lotus had been planted in the soft, fertile soil where the river's edge kissed the land. Around them, farmers, fishermen, and workers had gathered, their faces marked with weariness and skepticism. Pharaoh Setiamket arrived with his entourage, his presence commanding. Draped in resplendent robes and adorned with a headdress that bore the serpent of Wadjet, he surveyed the gathering with a mixture of curiosity and faint disapproval. "High Priestess Anuket," he said, his voice deep and authoritative. "You summon me here with claims of divine revelation. Speak plainly." Anuket stepped forward, bowing deeply. "Great Pharaoh, the gods have spoken through Nefertari, a dreamwalker of Hathor's temple. The Nile's plight is not a punishment but a reflection of the discord in our land and our hearts." Setiamket raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "Discord? The gods bless the just and punish the wicked. If the Nile falters, then surely it is due to the unworthy among us." Nefertari felt a flicker of anger rise within her but quelled it quickly. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "Pharaoh, the gods do not see worth as we do. They see balance, unity, and respect for the sacred. Our neglect of these principles has disrupted the harmony of the land." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement, while others looked doubtful or afraid. Setiamket narrowed his eyes. "And what proof do you offer of these claims?" Nefertari gestured toward the golden lotus. "This bloom was gifted to me by Osiris himself. It carries the essence of the god's message. When its roots take hold, the Nile will feel its power. But it is not enough on its own. We must change how we live, how we honor each other, and how we treat the land and the river that sustains us." The pharaoh approached the lotus, his expression cautious. As he knelt to examine it, the crowd hushed, their eyes fixed on him. The lotus seemed to glow faintly in his presence, a golden aura that radiated warmth. "It is true," Setiamket murmured, his tone laced with awe. He rose and turned to the crowd. "The gods have spoken, and their will is clear. We must unite as a people, cast aside our greed, and restore the harmony that the Nile craves." Word of the divine lotus and Nefertari's vision spread rapidly through the kingdom. The temples organized rituals and ceremonies to honor the Nile, while the people began to work together to restore balance. Farmers replanted fields with care, offering prayers of gratitude with each seed. Fishermen honored the river by taking only what was needed, and communities united to clean and protect the sacred waters. Nefertari's role as a dreamwalker elevated her to a position of immense respect, but it also came with new challenges. As the days passed, the golden lotus grew, its roots spreading deeper into the earth, but the river's flow remained uncertain. Some began to doubt, whispering that the god's favor had not truly returned. One night, as Nefertari sat by the lotus in quiet meditation, she felt a presence beside her. Opening her eyes, she saw a woman cloaked in shadow, her features indistinct but her voice hauntingly familiar. "You have done well, Dreamwalker, but your journey is far from over," the figure said. "Who are you?" Nefertari asked, her heart pounding. "I am one who walks between worlds, as you do," the figure replied. "The balance you seek to restore is fragile, and there are forces at work that would see it undone. You must return to the dream realm and seek the source of this disruption." Before Nefertari could respond, the figure vanished, leaving only a faint echo of her words. The next night, Nefertari prepared herself for another journey into the dream realm. Anuket and the priestesses performed the sacred rituals, their chants filling the chamber as the blue lotus oil burned brightly. As Nefertari drifted into the trance, she felt the familiar pull of the portal, its shimmering light enveloping her. This time, the dream realm was darker, its golden sands replaced by shifting shadows. The pyramids loomed ominously in the distance, their once pristine surfaces now cracked and weathered. The air was thick with tension, and the voices that had once whispered secrets now screamed warnings. "Dreamwalker," came a deep, guttural voice. From the shadows emerged a figure draped in black, its eyes glowing like embers. "You meddle in forces beyond your understanding. Who are you?" Nefertari demanded, her voice firm despite the fear clawing at her chest. "I am Sekhem, keeper of chaos," the figure replied. "Your efforts to restore balance threaten the natural order. Chaos is as essential as harmony, and you seek to tip the scales." Nefertari narrowed her eyes. "The scales were tipped long ago. I seek only to restore what was lost." Sekhem laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "And in doing so you risk everything. The Nile's fate is intertwined with forces you cannot comprehend. Proceed, and you may awaken something far more dangerous than drought." Nefertari stood her ground, her resolve unshaken. "If danger arises, I will face it. My people deserve a chance to thrive, and I will not abandon them." Sekhem's eyes burned brighter. "Very well, Dreamwalker. But know this, the path ahead will demand sacrifices. Be certain you are willing to pay the price." As Sikkim vanished into the shadows, Nefertari felt the dream realm shift around her. The sands beneath her feet solidified, and a new portal appeared before her, its edges crackling with energy. Steeling herself, she stepped through, ready to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Nefertari stepped into the portal, her breath catching as the energy around her crackled with intensity. She emerged into a vast expanse unlike anything she had seen before. The sky was an endless abyss of swirling colors, and the ground beneath her feet shimmered like molten gold. Strange structures rose in the distance, towers of light and shadow intertwined, defying the laws of geometry. At the center of it all was a massive, pulsating sphere of energy. It radiated a force that made Nefertari's skin prickle, and her instincts told her that this was the heart of the disruption Sikkim had warned her about. The closer she drew, the more the air around her hummed, resonating with an unseen rhythm. As she approached, a voice called out, soft yet commanding. "Dreamwalker, why have you come?" Nefertari turned to see a figure standing near the sphere. Unlike Sikkim, this entity exuded a calm, almost serene presence. Their form was fluid, shifting between human and celestial, as though they were a bridge between the mortal and the divine. "I seek the truth," Nefertari replied, her voice steady despite the awe the figure inspired. "The Nile suffers, and my people are desperate. I must understand the forces at work here." The figure gestured toward the pulsating sphere. "This is the core of balance, where all realms intersect. It reflects the harmony, or discord, of your world. But it is wounded, fractured by the greed and neglect of those who have forgotten their place within the greater whole." Nefertari felt a pang of guilt, though she knew she was not directly responsible. "Can it be healed?" The figure tilted their head, considering her. "Healing the core requires more than intention. The imbalance must be addressed in both the dream realm and the waking world. Only then can the flow of the Nile, and the lifeblood of your people, be restored." Before Nefertari could respond, the sphere shuddered violently. A crack spread across its surface, and from the fissure emerged a swarm of dark, writhing shapes. These shadowy entities screeched as they spiraled outward, their chaotic energy disrupting the harmony of the dream realm. The figure's serene demeanor shifted to urgency. "These are the fragments of chaos, born from the wounds of the core. They seek to consume and expand the imbalance. You must act, Dreamwalker." Nefertari instinctively reached for the golden lotus, still nestled against her chest. The bloom glowed brightly, its light forming a protective barrier around her as the shadowy entities swarmed closer. "What must I do?" she called out, her voice straining over the cacophony. The figure pointed toward the sphere. "You must seal the cracks, but it will require your essence. Your will, your strength, your very soul. Be warned, the process is perilous. Should you falter, you risk being consumed by the chaos yourself." Nefertari hesitated for only a moment. She thought of her people, the farmers, the fishermen, the children who depended on the Nile for life. Their faces filled her mind, and her resolve hardened. "I will do whatever it takes." With that, she raised the golden lotus high. Its light intensified, forming tendrils of energy that reached toward the fractured sphere. As the tendrils touched the cracks, the shadowy entities screeched in pain, their forms dissolving into wisps of smoke. The sphere resisted at first, trembling violently as if rejecting her efforts. Nefertari gritted her teeth, pouring her will into the lotus. She felt a searing pain in her chest, as though the energy of the dream realm was tearing through her very being. Yet she did not waver. The cracks began to mend, the light of the lotus weaving a golden lattice over the sphere's surface. The chaos subsided, the dark entities vanishing one by one. Finally, with a resonating hum, the sphere stabilized, its light shining brighter and steadier than before. Nefertari fell to her knees, her strength nearly spent. The figure approached, their form radiating gratitude. "You have done well, Dreamwalker. The core is mending, but the work is not yet complete. Return to your world and ensure the harmony you have restored here is reflected there." Before she could respond, the dream realm began to dissolve around her. The colors faded, and she felt herself being pulled back to the waking world. Nefertari awoke in the temple, her body trembling and drenched in sweat. The priestesses surrounded her, their faces filled with concern and relief. "You are back," Anuket said, kneeling beside her. "What did you see?" Nefertari took a shaky breath. "The core of balance was fractured, wounded by the chaos of our neglect. I have mended it, But it is not enough. We must act in the waking world to ensure the harmony holds. Anuket nodded solemnly. Then we must prepare. The pharaoh and the people will need guidance. In the days that followed, Nefertari became a beacon of inspiration. She led rituals at the Golden Lotus, which now flourished with radiant energy by the Nile's edge. Its roots seemed to pulse in time with the river, a tangible reminder of the balance she had fought to restore. The people, inspired by her words and deeds, began to change. They worked together to repair the damaged canals, replanted the fields with care, and honored the Nile with offerings of gratitude. Even Pharaoh Setiamket, once skeptical, became a champion of harmony, issuing decrees to protect the sacred river and its lands. Yet Nefertari could not shake the words of Sekhem, the keeper of chaos. The path ahead will demand sacrifices, he had said. She knew the battle for balance was far from over, and that other forces might rise to challenge what she had achieved. Each night, she prepared herself to return to the dream realm, knowing that her journey as a dreamwalker was only beginning. The core of balance might be mended, but the threads of harmony were delicate and required constant vigilance. The golden lotus continued to bloom, its light a symbol of hope for her people, and a reminder that the power of the dreamwalkers was both a gift and a burden. Nefertari would face whatever trials lay ahead, for she was no longer just a priestess. She was a guardian of balance, a dreamwalker of Nefertari.